What's going on, guys? John Kelly here, and today we are talking about mistakes that seasoned veteran backpackers make. Now, last week I just did a video all about mistakes that beginners make. Well, today the focus is on those of us who have been backpacking for a while. Those of us who think we got it all together and we know what we're doing when we get out on the trail. We're gonna talk about the mistakes that we're still making after years of trail time. Let's get into it. Mistake number one is kind of an arrogant thing, and I've got to be honest, it's one that I have done, and that is trying to pack your backpack from memory. Now, if you're going out for a 3 or 4 day trip or even just an overnight, there are so many things that go into a backpack. So many moving parts that depend on weather, that depend on the terrain you're going to be hiking in. There's just so many things that you have to get right when you go backpacking, or it could be the difference between an incredible trip and a complete disaster. So a lot of us as backpackers, we think that we've done it so many times that we can just pack our backpack, get out there and go, and it's gonna be just fine. And the truth is, most of us can't do that. Just like the beginner mistakes, I'm not saying every veteran backpacker makes these mistakes, but I do know veteran backpackers who have made them, or they're mistakes that I've made myself. This is definitely one that I've made, and it just happened this past summer. I was doing a 3-day trip with my buddy Josh in the Red River Gorge. It was a super hot week. It was in the 90s. We were gonna be doing steaks and eating fancy food on the trail, and I actually did a whole video about food on the trail during that trip. We get out there the first day, everything goes great. We have an incredible dinner that night, camp is set up, everything's perfect. We get up the next morning to do breakfast, and I realize I don't have any coffee. Whoop-de-frickin-do, John, you don't have coffee on the trail. That's not that big of a deal, but the truth is, for me, that's the lifeblood in the mornings when I first get up. It's what I do before I get out of my hammock, is I get that coffee ready, and I have that coffee first thing in the morning. Sit and relax, watch the sunrise, enjoy the coffee, and that day, there was no coffee. I remember my buddy Josh had brought extra by accident. And thankfully, because he brought extra by accident, I got to get my hands on some of that coffee and had coffee that week. But I wouldn't have had it had he not done that. There were also other items I messed up on and forgot. I only brought 2 water bottles when I meant to bring 3 because it was so hot. I forgot to bring clothing items. There were just things that got left out in my kit, and because of that, it made for a less than enjoyable trip in some ways. Luckily, I didn't forget anything like a water filter, but you never know, and so it's always wise to do a checklist. I know for me, I have a checklist on my phone. I use it every time I go backpacking, and for some stupid reason, on that one trip I didn't, and it ended up being a complete disaster. So if you are a veteran backpacker, don't try and do it from memory. Don't try and pack that backpack because you think you've got it all figured out. It's always wisest to still use that checklist, even when you're a veteran. Mistake number 2 is one that happens because we kind of forget what it was like when we started backpacking, and that's overestimating what your beginner backpacking friends can do when they get out on trail. One of my favorite things to do is bring friends out on the trail who've never been before. I love bringing new backpackers out and hoping to give them that same love for the trail that I have. That love for not only just the hiking, but also the camping at night and just spending evenings and days and weeks out on the trail. I want people to experience that, and so I bring a lot of beginner friends with me. And sometimes I overestimate what they're capable of or what kind of gear they're gonna have. So inevitably, I end up sharing gear with them. I may be the only one with a stove. They may not have enough gear to keep them warm, and we end up cutting a trip short. They may not bring enough food, or they bring too much food, or they bring too much gear in general and they end up hating the hike, and so I end up taking some of their gear in my pack just to help them out. Whenever you go backpacking with a beginner, it's always wise to walk them through all the steps of what's going on. You may go out with somebody who doesn't do a lot of hiking, but they think that they can do it, and they get out there and within miles they are just done. Like 3 or 4 miles in, they don't want to hike anymore. You've really got to talk through everything about a trip with a beginner backpacker, and when you're a veteran, sometimes we just assume that when they say they want to go on the trip, they know what they're getting into. And that can be a huge mistake because it doesn't just ruin the trip for them, it ruins the trip for you. So make sure If you are a veteran backpacker, you're somebody who's been doing it for a long time, do not overestimate what your beginner friends know and are capable of when they get out on the trail. Item number 3, the mistake that veteran, seasoned backpackers make is carrying a watered down medical kit. Now, understand what I mean when I say a watered down medical kit. Usually what happens with people who do a lot of hiking or do a lot of backpacking is they go out at the beginning with this medical kit that's just full of stuff. And they take it out, and after the first trip they realize, well, I didn't need this, I didn't need this, I didn't need this, and they pull that out. And then they go on their next trip, and there's some more things they didn't use, and before too long they're taking like 3 ibuprofen and a couple Band-Aids, and they're going out to some area like the Savage Gulf down in Tennessee, where you're going to do a lot of up and down hill. You're going to have some rocky areas that could get slick, and you could have the ability to really get hurt out on the trail, but you don't have the medical kit to take care of those situations. That's very dangerous. But like I said, for a lot of us, we're trying to cut weight, we're trying to get that base weight down below 10 pounds, and in the process of that, any ounce that we can cut, we're gonna do. And so a lot of times it's the medical kit that suffers because of it, and we take a medical kit that's actually subpar and could be dangerous for us when we're out on the trail because it's not going to provide us what we need when situations get a little bit on the crazy side. If you want to see a great video about medical kits, check out Devin Ashby's video from Backcountry Exposure. I'll put the link right up here for it. He did a fantastic job of explaining a really good medical kit to take out when you're backpacking. You don't want to go out there and get into a bad situation and find out because you were trying to shave some ounces, you actually caused an injury to maybe be even worse than it could have been. So make sure you don't water down that medical kit too much when you go out on trail, because it could be a problem for you when things get sideways. And the next big mistake that veteran backpackers make, every time I do that, it's like this rhyming thing. I feel like I'm some kind of a poet or something. Oh, for art thou backpackering. I don't even know. And the next big veteran backpacking mistake is thinking you know gear well enough that you can take new pieces of gear out on the trail without ever first trying them out at home. I've watched guys go out onto the trail with a brand new tent. It's their first time using it. And by first time, I mean there was still plastic on parts of the tent where it had never been opened before. You want to talk about something risky. Go out on the trail with gear that's brand new that you've never set up before and use it. Last December, I went on a quick overnight trip with Jeremiah Stringer, backpacking with Jason and Jason Wish. We met up in the Red River Gorge, and on that trip, we had been given some tarps to try out by Warbonnet, and I'd never used a Warbonnet tarp before, so I was real excited to try it out. And so I just didn't bring my tarp. Never seen this tarp before, just never used one, and I decided to just wing it and see what happens. Luckily, I had accidentally put too many sets of guy lines and stakes in my pack. I usually only brought 4, and I didn't realize that there were doors on the tarp that was coming, and so I didn't plan for having enough guy lines and enough stakes to make this tarp work. But luckily, I had put too many in my pack, and when I got there, I went to set it up and realized what all it needed, and I panicked. And all I thought was, great, I'm out here with backpacking with Jason, who's like the king of Kentucky backpacking. I'm out here with Jeremiah Stringer, who I do a podcast with, and I can get ripped publicly for this. And Jason Wish is out here, and he's kind of a legend for all the FKTs and the stuff that he's done, and I don't even know what I'm doing with this tarp. I'm so thankful I brought the extra guy lines, and I brought the extra stakes, and I was able to set the tarp up, and everything was fine. But had I not done that, that would have been a pretty miserable night with that tarp flapping around the whole time trying to get any sleep at all. Just because you know how to set up your tent or your tarp doesn't mean you know how to set up every tent or every tarp, at least not quickly. If you happen to go out and do this and it was raining, and this is the first time you've ever set this tent up, you might as well just plan on having a ton of water inside of your tent, because it's going to take a while for you to figure out where everything hooks in and how everything gets set up. Don't risk it. Even as a veteran backpacker, make sure if you get new tents, new tarps, any kind of new gear at all really, take it on a short trip in your backyard and set that up and practice setting it up and taking it down, so that when you do get on the trail, you don't risk destroying the weekend for yourself and you know exactly what you're getting into. Just because we've been doing this for a while doesn't mean that we have all-knowing knowledge about everything that's backpacking gear. And the final mistake that I notice backpacking veterans making is they still take too much food with them out on the trail. I don't care who it is. I don't care who the guy is. I don't care if they have a YouTube channel and everybody knows who they are, or they're just a guy who's been backpacking since the 70s. It seems like there's one common denominator among veteran backpackers, and that's bringing too much food. One of the things that I try and do when I pack my food is I put every day in a single Ziploc bag, and in that Ziploc bag I lay out all my food, and I lay out breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then I have a pile called snacks. But it's wise to set those out and get every day set up, know exactly what meals you're going to be eating on the trail and have those ready, and then have one extra meal that's available for you. If it's an area you've hiked multiple times and you're not worried about it, you're probably not going to do that. You're not going to bring the extra food. But if it's somewhere you've never been and there's the potential for mistakes to happen, there's the potential for you to kind of get stuck somewhere, it's not always a bad idea to have a little extra with you. But by going through and setting up each day, I don't know what this is. What is this right here? Like, when you put each day's food in a single Ziploc bag, it lets you know at the end of the day what food is left. And it also allows you, if you have meals where you're planning certain foods together, you're not digging through your bag trying to find things and thinking you forgot it, and then at the end of the week, there it is, and you never ate it, and it's just extra weight you've been carrying. It just makes sure that you've got your days organized so you know what you're gonna be eating each day when you're out on trail. Next week, I'm leaving for 4 days. I'm gonna be planning out 4 days worth of food, and that's exactly what I'm gonna do. Each day is going to be in its own Ziploc bag, labeled for that day, so I know that's the food I'm gonna eat that day. It's been a great way for me to keep track of the food that I'm eating when I'm on trail and making sure that I'm not overdoing it, but I'm also not underdoing it on my meals. And it has helped me to be more efficient, it's helped me to save weight, and it's helped me not to have as much waste. So if you are a veteran backpacker and you're constantly finding that you have too much food, maybe move to a Ziploc bag system like that, where each day's food is nicely and neatly packed into a little bag so that you know exactly what you're eating each day. It can prevent some extra weight on the trail, and it can allow you to eat the meals you were planning on eating without having to do a whole lot of thinking. And that's what I like. So what about you guys, you veteran backpackers, you seasoned people of the trail? What things are you still screwing up when you go out on the trail? What are the mistakes you're still making? Leave those in the comments below. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button so the YouTube algorithm likes it with you and tells everybody they need to watch this. And if you haven't already, hit that notification bell so you find out anytime one of these videos drops. And until next time, stay strong, hike long, and I'll catch you on the next go around.